It's like living in your neighbor's backyard, permanently. Imagine a country so completely surrounded by another that you can't leave without crossing your neighbor's fence. No coastline, no other borders, just you and one big neighbor. Sounds claustrophobic? Or maybe cozy? Welcome to the world of enclaved nations, countries that exist entirely inside another country. Today we're exploring why places like Lesotho, San Marino, and Vatican City are completely surrounded by their neighbors, how they got that way, and what life is really like when your entire country fits inside someone else's borders. Let's start with the basics. An enclave is a territory completely surrounded by another. If you zoom out on a map and see one country entirely wrapped by another, that's an enclave. The word comes from the French enclave, meaning to enclose. And while the world has lots of small enclaves or exclaves, like villages, districts, or military bases, only 3 full sovereign nations are entirely enclaved: Lesotho, San Marino, and Vatican City. Each of them is a living example of how geography, politics, and persistence can shape a country's fate. Let's start in southern Africa with Lesotho, completely surrounded by South Africa. At first glance, it looks like someone carved out a chunk of South Africa and labeled it a nation. But Lesotho's story is one of resilience. In the 1800s, the Basotho people, led by the brilliant King Moshoeshoe I, fought to maintain their land as European colonizers advanced. When Dutch Boers, early white settlers, began taking Basotho territory, Moshoeshoe saw the writing on the wall. He couldn't win militarily, but he could use diplomacy. So in 1868, he asked the British to protect his kingdom, turning Basutoland into a British protectorate. Nearly a century later, in 1966, it gained independence as Lesotho, while its massive neighbor formed the Republic of South Africa. That's how Lesotho became a mountain kingdom trapped inside another nation, but it's also what gives it its nickname, the Kingdom in the Sky. The entire country sits above 1,400 meters, making it the highest low point of any country in the world. But what's it like to actually live there? For the Basotho people, being enclaved means daily life is deeply connected to South Africa. Most imports, electricity, and even the currency, the Lesotho loti, pegged to the South African rand, depend on their neighbor. Thousands of Basotho cross the border every day to work in South African factories and mines. If South Africa's economy slows, Lesotho feels it immediately. When border crossings close, as during the pandemic, Lesotho's markets go quiet. Still, Lesotho has its own proud identity, a monarchy, its own language, and a deep sense of community in the mountains. It's one of the few African countries where traditional blankets and horseback travel are still part of daily life. Living inside your neighbor's borders isn't easy, but Lesotho shows how a small mountain nation can keep its sovereignty, culture, and pride alive, even when surrounded on all sides. Now let's fly north to Europe, to a tiny ancient republic perched on a mountain in the middle of Italy. Welcome to San Marino, population just over 35,000, covering only 61 square kilometers. According to legend, it was founded in 301 AD by a Christian stonemason named Marinus, who fled persecution under the Roman Empire and sought refuge on Mount Titano. He built a small community that grew into a republic, and remarkably, it's still around today. That makes San Marino the oldest surviving republic in the world. Through the rise and fall of empires, Roman, Papal, and Napoleonic, San Marino managed to stay independent. Its secret weapon, diplomacy. San Marino made itself small, neutral, and useful. Even Napoleon admired its independence, offering to enlarge it, but the Sammarinese politely refused, preferring to stay tiny and untouched. Then came the 19th century, when the Italian peninsula unified under one flag. Small states disappeared overnight, but San Marino had supported the unification movement and sheltered Italian revolutionaries. Out of gratitude, Italy let it remain independent. Today, life in San Marino feels almost seamless with Italy's. There's no hard border. People drive freely between the two. San Marino uses the euro, speaks Italian, and even shares postal services and emergency response systems. Yet, the people here fiercely protect their identity. They elect their own government, wave their own blue and white flag, and field their own Olympic team. Living in San Marino means enjoying the best of both worlds, the quiet of a mountaintop microstate and the convenience of Italian life just down the hill. You might walk to work with a breathtaking view of the Adriatic, cross an invisible border to shop in Rimini, and still be home in a nation that's older than modern Europe itself. It's independence without isolation, a tiny survivor that learned how to thrive inside its giant neighbor. And then there's the most famous enclave of all, Vatican City. Right in the middle of Rome, behind Renaissance walls, sits the world's smallest independent country, just 0.44 square kilometers, smaller than a big shopping mall. Yet, it's the headquarters of one of the most influential institutions on earth, the Roman Catholic Church. The Vatican wasn't always its own country. For centuries, the popes ruled over the Papal States, which covered much of central Italy. But when Italy unified in the 19th century, those states were annexed. The popes refused to recognize the new Italian government and lived as prisoners in the Vatican for nearly 60 years. Finally, in 1929, the Lateran Treaty settled the dispute. Italy recognized Vatican City as an independent sovereign state, and in return, the Pope recognized Italy. Since then, Vatican City has stood as the world's smallest country, with its own post office, radio station, passports, and even its own army, the colorful Swiss Guard. So what's life like inside those famous walls? Vatican City has fewer than 1,000 residents, and almost all of them are clergy or people working for the church. There are no permanent citizens by birth, only by position. That means everyone who lives in the Vatican is essentially there on assignment. The atmosphere is unlike anywhere else. The entire country is a museum, a palace, and a place of worship all rolled into one. Streets echo with church bells and the shuffle of pilgrims' feet. Step outside one gate and you're in bustling Rome. Step back in and you're in the quiet heart of Catholicism. Daily life revolves around the church's schedule, masses, papal audiences, diplomatic meetings. Rather than the rhythms of a typical city, there's no nightlife, no suburbs, no supermarkets. But for those who serve there, it's the ultimate blend of sacred tradition and global influence, a spiritual capital completely surrounded by modern Italy. So why are there only 3 of them? Because being completely surrounded by another country is complicated. Trade, transportation, and diplomacy all depend on that one neighbor's cooperation. Many countries have enclaves or exclaves, bits of land separated by borders, but very few are fully enclosed. Take Eswatini, which is almost inside South Africa but touches Mozambique, or Gambia, which is surrounded by Senegal except for a sliver of coastline. Full enclaves are rare because they're hard to sustain politically and economically. Most were created centuries ago by historical events, and once those borders hardened, they stayed that way. Today, Lesotho, San Marino, and Vatican City are reminders of how geography can trap you or protect you, depending on how you use it. And that's the story of the countries that live inside their neighbors. If you enjoyed this one, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. There's a whole world of strange borders and hidden histories waiting for you here. Check out the next video to keep exploring, because every line on the map has a story.